Ahoy! The patch 5.03 dropped, and it wouldn't be a new world patch if something didn't go wrong. In this case, it's the summer Medleyfaire event. But there are also some good changes here that I think are worth talking about, as well as some upcoming stuff that was in another video that New World posted. So let's talk about all of that. First thing we have is the update that came out today, and the first issue that there was with it was the file size once again. 5.0.3 came in at a hefty 40-something gigabytes again. And last time I said this, people claimed that it wasn't actually that big of an update, but rather that it was just correcting that amount of files. But no, it is actually an update that big. It's actually downloading all of these, and it took me over 2 hours. So very fun, especially when we consider that this was something that was supposed to be fixed. I am somewhat expecting it to be fixed for the console release, and I'm thinking that maybe they're so focused on that version of the game that they don't bother correctly setting up the versions beforehand. And that is the case in another aspect as well. So the summer Medleyfaire event is back from June 26 to July 23, which would be a great opportunity to farm some things. There's some new rewards and some returning activities. So most of the stuff that we see here already know. You have your music and dance, you have your Guitar Hero title, you can dance on the dance floor every day to get extra reputation, all the stuff that is the same as last year, and you of course have all the fishing related stuff. So no changes here, but then there are some new items. If we go down here, we have the old items listed, but a little bit further in the higher tiers we end up getting the updated Medleyfaire armor pattern, as well as if we go all the way to the end, we have the Medleyfaire jar, which is a new emote, as well as the 700 gear score armor patterns for Medleyfaire. You can access the shop and you can gain reputation, but you cannot do the quest line, which is worth keeping in mind. This is bugged, and Jake L found out the reason behind this being that the summer event is currently still scheduled for last year. So it's not actually happening at all on the server side, and that's why the quest isn't enabled. The villages and everything are still there, but they are not bug-free either. As you can see here, we have the new one in Eden Grove, and that just happens to be in a statue and inaccessible. That said, you probably don't need to farm all of the villages every day. We'll have a look at the new gear as well, but first some notable fixes and some other important fixes. So, fix a rare issue that prevented object interactions until the inventory or storage shed was opened after leaving the Stylemancer menu. Also fix an issue that caused players to stop movement when walking on ledges while performing an upper body action. Music research projects have their XP values increased significantly. I actually forgot they even exist. They fixed an issue that allowed unequipped musical instruments to be used, and fixed an issue where only the right mouse button could be used to activate the left mouse button and right mouse button notes in a musical performance when additional uses of Second Chance were available. But the big deals are of course down here in combat. For the hatchet, there's a fix for a quick attack bug where you could rapidly attack. We had a few of those over time, but this is another one. That is being solved now. And then we have the gear score mitigation scaling being updated to reduce the mitigation benefit when playing with low gear score items, specifically while at max level. So the new formula scales with the difference in player level, so the larger the difference in level, the greater the effect of gear score in the mitigation calculation. I think this is good if it's done right. First of all, obviously it needs to be effective at max level so that it really isn't beneficial to equip lower gear score. And also it needs to be done in a way where it's not beneficial to stay below max level. But I doubt that would be the case anyways, just because you are unlocking a lot of extra stuff by going to max level and getting the highest tier equipment. So I'd be somewhat surprised if they can't manage to do that. But why I like this is because it might bring back the combat from launch a little bit more, from actually before launch, from the closed beta I think it was, where the scaling between lower level players and higher level players was much more even. There was a very vocal group within the player base that was very against that. Some streamers had an issue with that because they were beaten by much lower level players. And it's understandable, because if you're coming from an MMO perspective, you gear up and everything, and then you want to be stronger than someone who doesn't have that gear. But I always thought that for the sake of having good PvP, this somewhat more balanced, more even ground was interesting. There were issues with that at the time as well, because there were ways in which the scaling could be unfair and somewhat in favor of the lower level player. But I do think that overall, if they go somewhat back in that direction without overdoing it, I would be very open to it. I found it very frustrating on Fresh Start, especially when I was fighting players that were like 10 levels above me, and I clearly outplayed them, but the gear difference was already so big at that point that it couldn't really be overcome without playing even better. And I thought that it would have been cool to have a closer experience to actual launch where you could very easily outplay someone 10, 20 levels above you if you play your cards right. They also fixed another issue that caused dodges to drain more stamina than intended. There were a few leftover ones that were still a problem. And here we have the 700 gear score armor pattern. For some reason it still says Summer Medleyfaire 2022, but that's the new one on New World Database here. And that can be used to craft any of the 700 gear score pieces. They have this new system with less clutter, which they also use for other events. And all of these have the same perk loadout, but they don't have the same resource requirements. Typically your gloves and boots and everything are a bit cheaper to craft, whereas your chest will need a lot more, so probably avoid that. I would generally recommend, if you're looking for something that is very universally useful, going for the helm, glove, boots, heavy combo kind of, or some of them at least, because that can be used in heavy, can be used in medium, or it can be used in light with featherweight. So I think that's a good all-rounder, but of course the other ones are perfectly suitable as well, and many of them will also require cheaper resources compared to the prismatic ingot. So up to you, but the stats for all of these, in any case, are always full con, refreshing, and elemental aversion, and then you have the socket obviously and a random perk slot. And as far as I know, I wasn't able to test this yet because obviously at this point I don't have a pattern yet, but normally these patterns do not allow you to select the last perk. Normally this is just a random perk, so you kind of have to hope to be lucky. If you are after conditioning or health, then particularly the boots are a pretty nice roll though, because they don't have anything else. The other ones all have their specific perks, like your crit perk on helm and so on. That's kind of in the same pool, but you have a pretty good chance to end up getting one of these. So if you see a purpose in that, then that's good. I think the combination of elemental aversion and refreshing is generally not that great, because refreshing is more of a PvE perk, and in a PvE you want to have enchanted ward. It's just much stronger with how many of the effects are coded. But if you find a use for it in PvP, if you want to have refreshing in PvP, then I think these can be a good foundation. If you get slash protection on that, or thrust, I think that could be pretty useful depending on how you want to use them. Health, of course, is fine as well. And last but not least, New World, or AGS, Amazon Games rather, posted a video on their other YouTube account where they talk about quest design. And in that video are some screenshots. And first I want to show you a screenshot here. This is from Cat Conti play testing, or rather talking about a play test of the early level experience in New World. And you can see the abilities of the sword here, and those are all the right tree abilities. They're all in blue now. Those are unchanged, so it seems like they're staying the same. However, on this new playtest, we have a new sword and shield ability on the left tree, I'm assuming, because it's red and it seems like they've colored them like this now, and this would be replacing reverse stab. They already mentioned that they want to replace reverse stab, and this looks like some kind of upswing, uppercut type attack, which looks like it has more motion in it, even in the small picture. It's kind of like a forward step, which I think could be really cool. And I'm very interested to see more about that. Of course, as a big fan of SNS, I always thought that reverse stab was a bit underwhelming, a bit frustrating. And the left tree is just slowly getting a bit love. Whirling Blade got a fair bit, and this could make things more interesting once again. Problem, as always, is that Shield Bash, especially, is just so strong that it's very difficult to effectively replace it in a build. But maybe this will do it somehow. Maybe there will be a stagger with this or something. We'll see. I'll of course keep you updated about the patch and anything else we learn about New World. And we're also going to talk about multiple other games in the next days. So if you're interested in any of that, consider subscribing, clicking the bell. And other than that, if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that. And thank you for watching. SLOTH, out.